Story 1. I never wanted to touch it, but curiosity, as it often does, outweighed reason. It began in a forgotten library at the edge of the city. Dust and shadows clung to the corners, and the air smelled of parchment and decay. I had been searching for old manuscripts, relics of forgotten knowledge, for my thesis in physics. Time, space, casuality. That's when I saw it. A book, bound in cracked black leather, etched with symbols I did not recognize. The title read The Chronomancer's Hour. I hesitated. Something about it felt alive, almost breathing. My fingers itched, and despite the voice in my head warning me to leave, I opened it. The book described a device, a clock, an hourglass, a mirror that could fold time upon itself. It promised no instructions, only warnings. I laughed. Of course, warnings are for the timid. I wanted to see the theory in practice. I constructed the device as best as I could. A small brass hourglass filled with sand that glittered faintly under candlelight. I turned it over at midnight. The world fractured. The candlelight stretched into lines of colors, walls elongated and twisted. I fell through something, or rather, something fell through me. A tunnel of sound and light, stretching, folding, echoing, and then I landed. I was in my apartment, but it was empty, silent, not my time. The calendar read October 12th, 1973. I was born in 1995. I had traveled back 22 years. At first, I experimented carefully. A cup moved slightly, a book placed on a different shelf. Each change rippled through the air. I could see glimpses of myself, another me, pale, observing, never touching. Then the whispers began, low, crawling in my mind, murmuring memories that were not mine, names I had never known, dates I had never lived. I tried to return. The hourglass would not turn. The sand flowed upward now, glowing faint, green. Panic clawed at me. I touched the glass, felt it burn my palms. Then the world shifted again. I was in a forest, dark, silent, no birds, no wind, only fog crawling along the ground. I heard something moving, not a person, not an animal, something other. I saw myself first as a shadow, a figure stepping through street, following me, but moving too smoothly, too deliberately. Its eyes, my eyes, were black, hollow, its mouth stretched wider than humanly possible, opening in a silent scream. Do not turn it over. It whispered in my voice. Do not touch it. You cannot leave. I ran, though my legs moved through the fog as if through water. The figure followed, bending the forest around itself. Every tree it passed wrapped, grew longer, twisted. The ground undulated beneath my feet. I realized then I was not just traveling in my time, I was traveling through reality itself. Every use of the hourglass fractured the world, creating. The next ship landed me in a city I'd recognized, my own, 20 years in the future. Buildings towered possibly high, skies a dull gray, and people I know their faces, friends, colleagues, family, but their eyes were wrong, hollow, black, endless. They whispered my sins, my failures. The whispers carried through streets, through air, into my skull. I saw myself dead, rotting. replaced by a hollow shell bearing my face. I understood then. The hourglass did not just move you through time, it recorded you, duplicated you, replaced you. Every time I tried to return the hourglass reacted violently. Walls melted, floors became fluid. My body stretched, shrank, fractured across realities. My own voice came from everywhere and nowhere, screaming in unison with versions of me I did not know. At one point, I saw centuries flash before me. I stood in a cathedral being constructed in 1423, my hands covered in mortar I could not feel. I shouted, no sound emerged. A shadow, me, there was too, watching, grinning. Then I was underwater. Centuries later, drowning in a sunken ship, I could breathe somehow. My lungs burned, my limbs drenched unnaturally. My reflection in the broken glass of a chest stared back at me, my eyes hollow, my mouth swaying shut. I screamed and landed again in my apartment. The more I traveled, the less I remained. Every shift took pieces of me, memories, thoughts, emotions, even my body, fractured, copied, stolen. In some realities, I was a criminal. In others, a murderer. In one, I had never existed. In other, I was dead. The hourglass pulsed, glowing green, always calling me, always demanding I turn it over. Time is yours, it whispers. Time is mine. We are one. I realized then I was no longer just me. I was every version of me across all time, and none of them belonged to the world I knew. I tried one last time to undo it. I turned the hourglass over, praying. I felt every timeline collapse, every reality fracture. I screamed, pain unlike any I had known tore through me. I was everywhere. I was nowhere. And then I awoke, or thought I did. My apartment was unchanged, my body intact. The hourglass sat innocently on the table. But something was wrong. The whispers returned immediately, louder, stronger. And then I looked in the mirror. My reflection smiled. Not me, not human. Hollowed high, mouth stretched in a permanent scream. It is time, it said. Your turn is over. Now mine begins. I could not move. I could not speak. I understood then the hourglass had replaced me. Or rather, it had re-written me. I was now one of many, trapped a hollow echo of myself. And in every reality, in every timeline, I exist to warn the next traveler. Do not touch it. Do not turn it. Time is not yours. But I only know they will. They always do. Story 2. I never believed in curses. I didn't believe in fate. I didn't believe in time travel. But now, I am living proof of all these three. It began with a clock, not a wristwatch, not an ordinary wall clock, but an enormous, ornate grandfather clock tucked in the corner of a derelict antique shop. Its face was black as coal, etched with golden numbers I couldn't recognize. The pendulum swung silently, though I heard no ticking. The shopkeeper was an old man, hunched over a can. He looked at me when I picked it up, eyes milky way with cataracts but sharp as a hawk's. That clock is not for sale, he said. Why? I asked. He coughed and a rasping sound came out. Because it chooses who may touch it and who will be consumed by it. I laughed. Of course, every horror story starts that way. I bought it anyway. I set the clock in my apartment. Midnight struck, and the chimes rang not with sound but with vibration. The room shimmered, walls bending, floor twisting. I fell through what I can only describe as a tunnel of light and shadow. I landed in the same room but different. Dust covered every surface. The calendar said July 3rd, 1921. I had traveled back 70 years. I explored cautiously. Outside, the streets were quiet. Shops had signs I could barely read. No one recognized me. And yet, I felt a presence. Something following me, watching. I first saw him in a mirror, my reflection. But wrong. Eyes hollow, mouth stretched unnaturally. It mimicked my movements, always one step behind. Do not touch the hands of time, it whispered in my voice. You will never return. I thought it was an hallucination, perhaps the shock of temporal displacement. But then I realized it wasn't in the mirror alone. Sometimes I would see it standing behind me, the corner of a room fading when I turned, and it wasn't the only one. Each time I used the clock, I arrived in a different time, sometimes centuries apart. Each shift fractured reality more. I saw wars I never studied, famines, plagues, and always versions of myself, some terrified, some angry, some dead, all hollow eyed, all reaching for me. I touched the hands of the clock, trying to return hope. They burned. Every attempt pulled me further, deeper into a web of timelines. I lost track of days, weeks, perhaps months. My body aged and unaged, twisted by the strange flow of time. The whispers began to speak names, names of people I knew, people I had loved, people I had never met. They called out, pleading, mocking, and each voice carried the weight of countless failures, regrets, and sins. I tried to run. I tried to destroy the clock. I set it in fire, smashed it with a hammer. The glass shattered, the hands bent, but the pendulum swung again, the numbers glowing faintly. It was alive. I realized then I was not traveling through time. I was time. Every shift duplicated me, twisted me, scattered me across centuries. In one timeline, I was dead. In another, I was a tyrant. In yet another, I had never born. I saw my funeral, my own hollowed corpse, lying in a coffin while I was washed, trapped, unable to intertwine. And the reflection in the glass above the coffin stared back at me, grinning. The turn is over, it's whispered. Mine begins. I write this now, though I'm not entirely certain it is still me writing. My hands tremble, though they are not mine. My thoughts echo with memories that do not belong to me. The clock sits in the corner, silent for now, but I hear it ticking in my head, in the floorboards, in the wind outside. I cannot leave, I cannot stop, and now I know. If anyone else finds it, the same will happen to them. Time is patient, time is hungry, and it always climbs its own. Story 3. I should have died the first time they called my name. My name is Private Adrian Wills. I joined the army because I wanted purpose, to serve something greater than myself. Glory, I thought, honor, adventure. None of it mattered when I first stepped into no man's land. It was the winter of 1917. The trenches stretched for miles, muddy, freezing, a labyrinth of barbed wire, shell craters, and corpses half buried in the muck. The officers spoke of strategy, a taking ground, but the men whispered of something else, something alive in the mud. I laughed at them at first. They were scared. Young men scared of dying, scared of the cold, scared of the dark. But I would learn that fear is nothing compared to what waits in the void between life and death. The first night in the trench, I noticed it. The whispering, not ordinary conversation, not when rattling against the corrugated steel. Names, my name, my father's name, names of people I had never known. Adrian, come play with us. I shook my head. Must be the wind, must be exhaustion. But when I closed my eyes, I could see figures in the mud, pale, ragged, faces half formed, their mouths moved, but no sound emerged. I tried to sleep. I could not. They sent us out to scout the ridge beyond the trench lines. The snow had stopped, leaving a grey wasteland of mud and blood. We moved cautiously, rifles ready. That's when I saw him, or it. A man, pale, uniform tattered, eyes sunken deep into the skull, his mouth open unnaturally wide. He didn't run, he didn't walk. He glided towards us. Corporal Mason fired his rifle. Bullets tore through him. Nothing. The figure continued, unhurried, until it was gone, vanishing into the fog. The fog. That was the first thing I should have noticed. Not ordinary fog, not the kind you can see and blow past. The fog seemed to move, curling around us, alive. By the time we returned to the trench, the other men were whispering the same. Did you see them? It started small, men vanishing. Private Jenkins disappeared while fetching water. Sergeant Holloway went on patrol and never returned. Each time, no trace reminded, no footprints, no blood, only silence. We began to call them the Hollow Man, not dead, not alive, something in between. Their skin pale, faces hollow, eyes empty. Sometimes we glimpsed them in the fog at the edge of our vision, watching, waiting. For the second week, we stopped laughing. We stopped talking. All that remained was fear. I slept with my rifle in hand. Every night they came in my dreams. First, softly, whispering names, mocking memories, then closer, closer. I could feel their hands brushing my skin, stretching through my blankets, touching my throat, my chest, my face. And I woke to find my blankets disturbed, always disturbed. Sometimes wet, not water, something darker. I tried to speak to the other men, to tell them what I saw, but they were already broken, hollow eyed, muttering to themselves, some scratched symbols to the trench walls, symbols that seemed to writhe and twist if you looked too long. It happened on a night colder than any I had known. Fog rolled in thicker than ever. We huddled in the trench, counting each other. 15, 14, 13. The hollow men came from the mist. Hundreds. No sound, only movement. They flowed over the ridge like smoke, their mouths open in silent screams, their hands reached, claws digging into flesh. Corporal Mason screamed as one passed through them, through his chest. I saw the ribs split, the organs shift, and yet he did not fall. He screamed still, screaming silently, eyes hollow. I ran, I stumbled through the mud, slipping over corpses, leaving friends behind. Every time I looked back, the hollow men followed, not running, not walking, gliding, watching, waiting. By dawn, I was alone, or so I thought. I returned to the trench line, but it was gone, twisted, not the same. Parts I knew were blocked, others appeared out of nowhere. I realized then the battlefield was alive, moving, shifting, a trap. I entered a tunnel that should not have existed. It was underground, damp, walls pulsating, and there they were, hollow men, not a few, hundreds, crawling from the walls, the floor, the ceiling. Their hands reached for me, touching me through space, through time. I tried to scream. I could not. I wandered days or weeks. Time had no meaning here. I began seeing versions of myself. Some were dead, hollow eyed, some were screaming silently, some were following me, always following, always waiting. I could no longer tell which were real, which was me, which was a hollow version. Every mirror reflected something wrong. A smile stretched too wide, eyes hollow, skin pale. I began muttering to myself prayers, names, lies, symbols scratched into the mud on my own skin. Anything to feel control. But there was no control. I stumbled into a valley, fog thicker than anything I had seen, moving with purpose. And I realized the battlefield, the trenches, the mud, the carves, they were all part of it. The hollow men were not soldiers, not victims. They were the land itself. The valley wanted me, and it had climbed everything else. I tried to climb the ridge. My boots sank into the mud. Shapes moved beneath my feet. Hollow hand, skeletal, stretching up, clutching, pulling. I screamed, I ran, but the valley followed. I am alone now, or perhaps not. Perhaps the hollow men watch from the edges of reality. Perhaps they wait for me to falter. I write this because someone might find it. Someone might think they can survive no man's land. They cannot. The battlefield is alive. The hollow men are patient. They are eternal. They wait. My eyes hollow, my fingers long, blackened, my mouth opens, but no sound comes. If you read this, run. Do not look back. Do not enter the trenches. The hollow men are waiting, and they know your name.